Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, John Haynes, A Conversation with Death. A man who rules the world and the angel of darkness take on a horde of demons in this inaugural John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, A Conversation with Death for 99 cents on Kindle or in paperback today. One of my viewers wanted me to talk about the tragic and senseless murder of a 15-year-old young man here in the Bronx. Now, this 15-year-old young man was going to the store when he was ambushed by a group of machete-wielding gang members who thought he looked like somebody they were trying to get. And they dragged this 15-year-old boy out of that store and stabbed him and slit his throat. And this young man staggered his way down the street to another store looking for help, but got no help at that store, and then later on his way trying to walk to the hospital, collapsed and died. Now, I wasn't going to say anything about this incident because this incident has something to do with the Hispanic community and not the black community. And when it comes down to the Hispanic community, this incident of violence that tragically transpired, this is their business because they control the economy here in the Bronx, they control all the politicians here in the Bronx, and they can get business taken care of here in the Bronx on their own. But I can clearly see the hypocrisy of many of these women here in the Bronx who are standing out there marching and protesting, talking about stopping the violence in the community when they are the enablers of much of the violence here in the community regarding these gangs that are roaming around terrorizing people. Because just like David Carroll has said in numerous videos regarding this Afro-American Negro, when you look at who created these urban terrorists, it is these females who create these urban terrorists, because many of these females who are out here marching and protesting, talking about stopping the violence, these are their sons walking and roaming the streets looking to terrorize people. And the critical question all these people who are talking about stopping the violence really need to ask is this: where are the fathers? Because if there were fathers in that community, there would be no gangs in that community. Because when it comes down to fathers, these male authority figures would want to try to maintain some quality of life in their community so they could get up and go to work every day. And they would make sure that their sons were doing things that were constructive every day so that they wouldn't be in these gangs. And because when it comes down to this whole gang issue, when you take a critical look at it, it's a father issue. Because when there are no fathers in a community, you have these boys running amok out here wielding machetes like this mob of gang members. Because when there are no fathers in the home to be the leader and authority figure in the community, that's when the boys run amok like this mob of 8 boys who decided they were going to go murder this boy because they thought he looked like there was somebody that they wanted to get. But that all happened because there are no fathers in the community. And that's something none of these people who want to march and protest and talk about stopping the violence want to talk about, because that points the finger right back at these females, and no one wants to point the finger at these females and hold them accountable for that boy's death, because that boy's death is primarily due to all those single mothers raising those savages who were running around with those machetes. And they raised those boys like that because they wanted to get a big payday from another enabler, the white liberals' welfare state. And because they wanted to get that payment from the welfare state, they got that blood money from that boy's life. And no one wants to talk about that, because this is where the core problem lies with these gangs. The core problem with most of these gangs that terrorize these communities has to do with there being no fathers in those communities. Because where there are fathers in the home, that father is going to provide structure for his son, that father is going to provide discipline for his son, and that father is going to make sure that he vets all of that boy's friends to make sure that he is going out here and interacting with the right people. Moreover, that father is going to make sure that that boy is involved in some sort of constructive activity, whether it be an after-school program or some sort of job, so that he's not out here on these streets trying to pretend like he's some sort of thug or some sort of bad boy, like he sees in many of these ridiculous music videos and these ridiculous entertainment programs. And because that father's going to sit that son down and tell him that everything he sees on that television screen is fake, everything he sees on that television screen is made up, and most of these so-called thug guys, they're just tools of white supremacy, and what those tools are used to do things that white supremacists want them to do. That's what a father is going to do when he instructs and teaches his son. And he's going to provide that authority over his son so that when he gets older and starts thinking that he's such a man, show him what a man really looks like. Because when there is a father in the home, guess what? Again, there is no gang culture in his home. Because when there is a father, the first thing he's going to say is that this is a family and you're going to be a part of my family or you're going to leave my house. Because that's what a father is going to say. When a father is the one paying the bills in the home, he's going to say things to that boy to let him know who is in charge here. He's going to say, look, I'm the one paying for your Xbox. I'm the one paying for your food. If you want to be a part of this family and get these benefits from me, then you're going to have to follow the rules of my home. If you don't want to follow the rules of my home, you can go join that gang out in the street. Because when you have a father in the home, he's going to establish that standard in his home. He's not going to allow you to bring some gangster stuff in his home. He's going to say that his home is his standard, and if you don't like living in his home by his standard, you can go join the gang in the street, and all the fathers in the home are going to come together and say the exact same thing. And when those boys see themselves out in the street with no money, no food, no video games, and no nothing, guess what? They're going to realize that they need to submit to the authority of their father, and that's going to teach that boy a lesson in manhood. But because there are no fathers in any of these homes, guess what? Mom lets the boy sit there and play video games all day. She lets him watch all this media talking about thug culture. She lets him hang out with idiots who talk about all this gang nonsense. And she lets him do whatever she wants because she can't control this boy, because this boy has grown up to become bigger than she is, stronger than she is, and because he does this, he runs the household like a man, but he knows absolutely nothing to be a man. And what happens is going to happen to many of these 8 males who call themselves being thugs out here. What's going to happen to them is they're going to become in for a rude awakening when they enter Rikers Island, and they're going to look at their life and realize the big mistake that they made murdering this young man. Now, it's tragic that this young man lost his life, but when I look at the big picture as related to things, we really need to call these females out, because they are the ones out here raising these boys to become these gang members. They are the enablers of these boys becoming gang members. They support these boys becoming gang members, and they're the ones who go out here and date and have relationships with these gang members. But then no one, they sit there and talk about, we need to stop the violence. No, you need to stop dealing with these low seed, dusty, bum people that call themselves men and go out here and try to have a relationship with a real man. Because if you go out here and have a relationship with a responsible, conscientious man, he is going to be the authority figure that is going to go out here and help you raise a strong son. But many of these females, they want to sit there and march and protest after one of their boys gets killed, when they could have avoided all this by going out here and letting that father come into their son's life overall. Because if they had let that father come into the picture, you wouldn't see any gangs in the community, because we didn't have a gang problem in many communities when there were fathers in the home. It was only when the father was taken out of the home that we saw this problem, and we're going to continue to see this problem in the communities, because where there are no fathers in the home, you're going to see gangs, you're going to see thug culture, because these boys don't have a model for masculinity for them. They don't have a model for male authority in front of them, and they don't have an example of how to be a responsible man, because you have women raising boys to become men, and when you have a woman raising a boy to become a man, you have nothing but chaos, because this boy knows absolutely nothing that other life skills he needs to become a man. The only way you're going to stop the so-called gang problem here in America is when a gang of women to come together and decide to stand by the men in their community and let them be the fathers that they're supposed to be. Let the fathers come in to their sons' lives, and let the fathers come into their home and be the disciplinarian and authority figure he's supposed to be, because that's how you stop the violence. Because when the father is coming in the home, he is the one who is going to stop all of the problems in the street. Because once he finds out about his son doing things in the street, he is going to lay down the discipline on his son, so that the police officers won't have to take your son into this precinct to be arraigned and then spend the rest of his life possibly in prison. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications on men's issues, like the Simp series, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.